Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ansley. Today we're going to be doing my March reading wrap-up. Usually I would wait and compile my reading wrap-up for like 2 months, but I read 6 books this month, which is a lot for me. I just read so much this month. I did read every single book on my TBR, and I was so excited about that. I'm going to show you all the books I read and talked about what I liked and didn't like about each of them. These are all 6 books that I read. Okay, starting the month out very strong, I finished Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I had started this in February, and I just needed to finish it. I really did enjoy this book. Reading this book, it was really sad and dark and like heavy. I'm going to give this book around 3.5 to 4 stars. I'm leaning towards like 3.75 just because this book, like, it felt very wordy to me. Like, I remember when I was reading it, I was like, this paragraph is describing one thing. Like, I felt like there was a lot of words and not a lot was happening. That was my main complaint with this book, but I did really like it. The last line in this book was so sad. Like, it made me so sad I had to tab it. Like, it made me so sad. The very last line, I wasn't really expecting any of the plot twists in this book. They did like catch me off guard, which is always good. This is my 3rd Karen Slaughter book. I really did enjoy it a lot. I love Karen Slaughter books. Like the first Karen Slaughter book I read was The Good Daughter, which I really enjoyed. And I also really enjoyed this. I just feel like you can really get to like dive deep into a story about people and you learn a lot about their lives, and Karen Slaughter really just gives you like really in-depth, complicated characters. And because of that, I did enjoy this book. I think I'm going to give it 3.75 stars. Okay, the next book I read this month was The Couple Next Door by Shari Lapena. This book is so floppy. I mean, this is insane. This book is really short. It's like, what, it's a little over 300 pages. This, I did not know what this was about at all, really. If you don't know what this is about, it's basically about a couple and they go to a dinner party at the house next door and they just had a baby. They have like a 6-month-old newborn baby and their babysitter canceled on them. So they're like, what should we do? Should we cancel? Because their neighbors said it's a no kids party. And they end up just leaving the baby at the house, and every hour and a half they go check on her. And then when they come home at the very end of the night, the baby is gone and the door's open and they don't know where the baby is. I really enjoyed this book. I wrote down, like, in my little ratings book, I wrote down 4 stars, but I think I'm going to give it 3.5 stars or maybe just around 3 stars. I haven't really thought about it since. The story, like, the ending was wild. I did really enjoy the ending. I liked it better than the other Shari Lapena book I read. I read Not a Happy Family by Shari Lapena, and I did not like the ending to that one, but I really did enjoy the ending to this. I thought it was good. I read this whole book in like 2 or 3 sittings, which was really good for me. It was really easy to just fly through. And I think if you like kidnapping stories, I mean, I don't know. But I did really enjoy this book. Okay, next, all the thrillers were like getting mixed up in my head, and I was like, I need to read something fun and fluffy and cute. So I picked up How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. I've had this book for a long time. I mean, this was an April book of the month from 2024. So this is I've had this for almost a year. And I really never envisioned myself reading it. Like, I thought I would give it away just because romance is not my top genre. It hasn't ever been my top genre. And I think if I do read romance, it's more of like, I wouldn't even say young adult. I just think more like Lynn Painter vibes if I'm gonna read a romance. But I was like, it's a standalone romance. There's no like second book. It's not a series. Let me just read it. And it wasn't that long. I did read the summary. I knew what it was about, but I read the summary anyway. And basically, if you don't know, this is a romance between a girl and the guy in it. He like accidentally ran over her sister, but it was like a complete accident. So that's like their conflict. And sometimes I didn't like it. Sometimes I didn't really care about it. But at the end, I don't know. I mean, I really liked when the story talked about their lives because they're both, the girl is a writer and then the guy's a television writer and she's helping him write the TV show for her book. And I really liked when they talked about like their jobs and stuff. I thought it was really interesting. But would I recommend it? I don't think so. I haven't really thought about it since I read it, and I'm gonna give it like I'm gonna give it 3 stars because I did really enjoy them talking about their jobs, but other than that, I probably wouldn't recommend it. Okay, then next I read my favorite book that I read this whole month, The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I really did not think that I was going to love this book. Like, I thought it would be okay, I thought it would be fine, I thought I would enjoy it, but I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I did. And I mean, this book also is like mixed media, so all throughout, after every single chapter, there is like a letter or something from a newspaper or just like an incident report or something like that, which I loved because you learned a lot about the main characters' like backstories through those mixed media elements. I posted a book review of this on my TikTok, and in that book review, I said that the Final Girl Support Group successfully does something that I think a lot of books before have tried to do, and that is it compiles the backstories of Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, Black Christmas, I'm missing one, and Friday the 13th. It combines all of those backstories into this one book by using the main characters and using those storylines as their backstories. And I love that. And it did it so seamlessly. Like, and I think also if you have the ability to find those Easter eggs and find those backstories and be like, wow, that is what happens in Scream. Like, I think it's really interesting because I could, and like, I would be reading a backstory and I would be like, that's Halloween. Like, that's the story of Halloween. And it just made the reading experience so much more fun and so much more interactive for me. And it really, like, I was really excited to read this book. And I flew through it. Like, it even mentions on the back, it says the Final Girl Support Group pays tribute to and slyly subverts our most popular horror films, movies like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Scream. I loved this book. I mean, if you like any of those movies, this book combined one thing that all of those movies have in common, which is a final girl, and it did it so well. 5 stars. Okay, next, I went to a cabin in the mountains for spring break. I did film a reading vlog while I was there. These books were featured in that reading vlog. That video will be up after this one. But the books that I read, the first one was The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This book was on my monthly TBR, which is why I read it. I was really excited to read this book. It ended up just being okay. I'm leaning towards 2.5 stars, which seems really harsh because let me tell you what I did not like about this book. I was going into this book thinking that it was going to be like a really great plot twist thriller book, which is what I've heard. And I've heard that the plot twist for this book was absolutely crazy. I heard people say it was amazing, and then I heard some people say that it was like a cop-out and they didn't like it. I didn't really know which one I was gonna be, like what group I would fall into, but the first like 200 pages of this book, I was so invested. I was so interested in the story. I was like, what's going on? Like, the vibes of it. I will say something about Riley Sager's writing is that I can envision what's going on very well while reading his writing. Like, it's very descriptive in a good way. It's not too wordy. It's not too hard to understand. Like, it is really easy to visualize the things happening in this book, which I really liked. And the lake house vibes were really good in this book. I will say I did not like the plot twist. I did not like it. I guess I would say it was like kind of a cop-out. I would agree with those people, but I'm not saying that. But I just didn't like it that much. Like, I was waiting for something really crazy to happen, and it felt like what happened wasn't that crazy. And maybe it's just because I read so many thrillers and expect crazy plot twists, and most of the time, like, if you're expecting something crazy, you'll get disappointed a lot, I think, because it's hard to like come up with a plot twist that's never been done before. But I think what people say when they're like, it's a popcorn thriller where you just read it and it was fun and then you move on, because I feel like that's what this was for me. But I really enjoyed the first part. I thought it was good. If you liked Layla by Colleen Hoover, I think that you would like this. Also, if you liked Rear Window, they reference Rear Window in this book by Alfred Hitchcock. I think that you would enjoy this book if you like that movie. Last book I read this month was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I finished this yesterday. I wrote down that I was going to give it 4 stars. I think that I am going to give it 4 stars. I will say I did guess the plot twist, and part of me doesn't know how you wouldn't, because there's a letter in the beginning of this book. There's a note from the author's agent, and you read this, and I feel like it spoils it for me. I feel like it spoils it, because when I read that, my first thought was, oh, what if it's this? And that was the plot twist. And I think that if that letter wasn't there, I don't see the reason why that letter is there. I think if it wasn't there, then the plot twist would have been, I don't know if it would have been better. It's definitely like, it was one of the first things I thought, because I feel like what happens in this book is the first thing. Like, I think the plot twist in this book, I did guess it, and like I texted my brother and I was like, I'm gonna send you what I think it is, and if it's that, then I'm gonna be a genius. But I did have a really fun time reading this book. The writing in this book was really, really good. I did notice that. I really liked the writing. I loved the vibes of being in this house. And the thing with this house was like, when the tide was in, you couldn't leave because your house was surrounded by water. And I really liked that. I thought it added a layer of mystery. And I've never read about a house that like, if the tide's in, you literally can't leave. I thought that was really interesting. And I loved how it takes place on Halloween. Like, this happens on Halloween. I thought that was really fun. I love how she incorporated the flashbacks in this book, because the flashbacks also like really told you a lot about the family, and they were all kind of horrible people. Like, this is a whodunit where the grandmother dies and they have to find out like who did it. And it really, like, there's a reason that every single one of them would have done it. And I love books like that, because then it just keeps you guessing more and more. But overall, I did enjoy this book. I had a really fun time reading this book, so I'm going to give it 4 stars. These were all 6 of the books that I read in the month of March. Overall, I had a really good reading month. Like, none of them were horrible. I didn't hate any of them, which was really good. I think for the month of April, usually I would show my TBR, but I think I'm just gonna go in with no TBR, just mood reading the whole month, because this is a busy month, so I don't think I'm going to be reading as much. If you want to follow along what I'm reading, you should follow my TikTok. I'll put it on the screen. And I gotta go find a book to mood read. So I will see you guys later. Bye!